Hey, this is Alex Piak, and welcome to the Dominant Agent Podcast, the place where real estate agents and brokers come to learn directly from the top agents, coaches, trainers, and industry influencers on how to build profitable, scalable, and enjoyable businesses by becoming the dominant agent in their market so they can live life on their terms. Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Dominant Agent Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Piak. As you know, we are committed to helping real estate agents build profitable, scalable, and enjoyable real estate businesses by bringing you guys access to the absolute best real estate agents, coaches, trainers, and influencers in the industry. Our guest today absolutely fits all of those. Today, we're going to be talking with Jim Keaty. Jim Keaty is the owner and broker of Keaty Real Estate, one of Lafayette's fastest growing real estate companies. With over 40 agents, Keaty Real Estate is known as the Keatyanas real estate experts. Jim and his team are consistently recognized by the Wall Street Journal and Real Trends as one of the top teams in Louisiana and in the nation, ranking as high as number 35 in the nation for closed transactions. Jim, welcome to the Dominant Agent Podcast.
Yeah, brother. Nice to be here, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure, man. Today's going to be really unique. We were talking a little bit before the show. We usually focus on how real estate agents can thrive, build their business, sales, right? But with everything that's going on with COVID-19, I've had the pleasure of knowing you since 2014 when I moved to Dallas. We were in a mastermind group together. Jim has always been one of those guys that was super fun to hang around with, life at the party, but his business was something that people admired. He had culture in his team, super successful, selling hundreds and hundreds of homes. And he would come to the mastermind, and this guy would pour into the group and just say, here's what we're doing, here's what worked, here's what didn't work, and just pulled the curtains back. And I've always admired that. I've always respected that. And I think that's why you're so well respected in our industry. So I definitely want to have you back on so we can talk real estate. But in a recent conversation, we were talking about COVID-19 and some of the things that are available to real estate agents so that we can protect our business and kind of ride this situation out, right? For lack of the best words here. How do you maintain your business? How do we get through this challenge? And you started telling me about all of these programs that are available to real estate agents. And I was embarrassed because I had no clue what was available, what were the resources. And I said, hey, would you like to do the podcast about this? Because this is something that's really going to help real estate agents right now. So I'm super excited. Why don't you guys give us a little bit of background about how you became so informed, how this has impacted your real estate business, and then we'll dive into really what's available for us as real estate agents, things that we need to be doing right now in our business.
Yeah, man, Alex, thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here, and it's good to see you. It's been a while since we've actually seen each other, so it's good to connect through Zoom. You had mentioned that people respect me. I think those people just don't know me well enough yet. So, I'm from Louisiana. I run a team of about 50 agents. When this thing went down, I made it a priority to, really focus on, okay, well, how are we going to get through this? And I was telling Alex, I went through, it was like an emotional roller coaster because I just couldn't comprehend how you can shut down the world economy. And now it's about, okay, this is the reality we're living in. What do we need to protect ourselves and protect everything you, the team leader, and all of your agents have worked for all of these years up until this point? And nobody knows how long lasting this is going to be or what the true effects on the market and in our business will be. So it can be scary. Uncertainty, creates fear, and fear creates panic. And so the one thing that I dove into, like I was telling you, was numbers. At first, I was looking at the virus and the health issues and once I got a grasp of that and I felt comfortable, okay, well, this is what the situation is there. And I reached out to a lot of doctors and did, interviews with different doctors and local people here to really know what the facts are, because I'm sure, you've heard Louisiana is one of the worst. And we're about 100 miles from New Orleans, just west of New Orleans. So it can be scary. My employees, I've got about 12 employees, and being there as a leader for them, not necessarily, and I didn't want to just sweep things under the rug and make it sound, hey, we're all going to be okay. I wanted to give them facts. And then for the realtors, I made a choice not to let go any of my staff, and we had to evolve and adapt to the new reality that we're living in, and they're all working from home, and we're keeping everybody busy, and we're doing huddles and check-ins throughout the day, and so my staff feel comfortable. That was the first thing, make sure they understand they're not losing their jobs. And then the next thing was, okay, well, how do we make it through this, and what are the programs that are available to not only me as the business owner, but also my agent. So I just went out and really just started to find as much information as I can. I'm also the president of the local Realtor Association here in Lafayette. So I'm also concerned about all of our members in our area. So I did interviews with our chief executive officer for the state. Like I said, I was talking to the local economic development guys and gurus, and the actual what we call LEDIA, Lafayette Economic Development, the government officials I've talked to and interviewed, state representatives, the senators. I was talking to Senator Kennedy's office just a couple hours ago, finding out as much as I can about what programs are happening and where they are at Congress to be there for us, and what they're going to do, and actually keeping a pulse on what's happening, because things are changing hour by hour, day by day. And the best thing you can do is lead right now, and to eliminate that confusion as much as possible, so that there's less fear, and so there's no panic. So that's kind of where I took a stance, and that's where I am right now. So it's a daily rhythm that I'm in, almost, like I'm doing podcasts, I'm watching more podcasts and more webinars than I have time to. So I'm working more than I ever have, because there's so much information out there. I know you're doing it too, Alex. Like, there's people that are watching your podcast to find out what they can do to help lead and be there for their team members. So, this is the kind of information that you need to know. And so that's how I got into where I am right now. That's a little long-winded answer.
No, that's great, because it's important, man, because you're really unique in as the leader of your organization. You have to protect, first of all, taking on the responsibility to continue to pay your people. That's really admirable. And that comes at a financial risk to you and your family, right? But you've made that stance. So you've got to protect the business. So we have agents who are similar to yourself. They're the CEO of the business. They're the broker. They need to protect the business. And then we have agents who are just real estate agents who need to protect themselves and put food on the table for their family. So you have two hats in this. You've got the business, but then you've also got to go do the research for your agents, because your agents are your business, right? Keeping your agents happy, informed, protecting them and their family. That's a really critical role as a leader right now. So what are some of the things that agents who are listening now should be looking into? Because getting information is key, but getting the right information is critical. Not just like, where do we go for information? What programs are out there?
Yeah, man. So this is real important. First of all, just to be aware of what's available. And so there's three main components of the CARES Act, which is the COVID-19 legislation that was passed. I think it was in mid-March. But there's cash flow component, there's the tax benefit component, and loan and grants. And so the cash flow is what most of you guys probably already know about. That's the $1,200 that's going to be deposited directly into your accounts if you make under $100,000, is my understanding. And then if it's $500 for every dependent. So that's going to be automatic. And then there's the unemployment benefits, which, Alex, we were talking, your wife works for Social Security, and they're actually more efficient and effective than they were when they were working from their office. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I mean, people walk into Social Security all day long just because they want to get a new Social Security card, or they have random questions that you can find online. So it's not uncommon for her to have 400 or 500 people through a day come through the office. And if you wanted a schedule, I asked her this yesterday. I said, how long does it take? Because somebody had missed their appointment. And I said, how long does it take for that person who now has missed 3 calls from you today to get back on your schedule? She said, usually it's over 2 months. I'm like, wow. She goes, but right now, because none of the people who are walking in the office wasting our time on, things that aren't important, she goes, I could probably get them back on this calendar in 24 to 48 hours. And I'm like, wow, that is just think about the efficiency there, right? And just serving the people that actually have a legitimate question, that need legitimate help, that just aren't clogging it up, for lack of better words.
Right. Well, yeah. So, and you were laughing at me. You had mentioned there's people that were going during this pandemic knocking on the door. Well, I was one of those people. I was banging on the door, like, I need to find out, what do I need to know about unemployment before they even, I knew they were going to do something for self-employed 1099 people like realtors, and that's unprecedented. That's never happened in the history of the United States Social Security. They've never given benefits to 1099 or sole proprietors. So this is all new. So when this was coming out, they passed it in the CARES Act. They gave billions of dollars to federally fund the unemployment for sole proprietors and realtors. So I wanted to find out as much as I could. So like I said, I interviewed state representatives, senators, to get as much as I can while it was coming out. So I was getting real-time updates, and so some of you guys might have, probably got the cash. Alex, have you gotten your check yet? Or
yeah, it was, man, within the last 4 days, it showed up in the bank.
Yeah, so and it just pops in there, right? You'll just have an extra $1,200 in there, and if you have dependents, you think you get $500 for each one. Well, the unemployment part. So all of you guys really need to know this, and I'm going to go over all the different benefits. But unemployment is probably going to be the most common benefit for all of you guys. And by taking unemployment, it doesn't necessarily eliminate any of the other programs. You can apply for everything, but you need to be honest on your applications. You don't want to double dip on certain things, and I'll explain that in a second. But the best scenario is for everybody to apply for all of the different programs available, and number one is unemployment. And in the federal government, through the CARES Act, has released there's a bonus, I think is what they're calling it, a boost. I'm sorry, not a bonus, a boost of $600 on top of the regular benefits if you qualify for the pandemic program. So if you're a self-employed person, if you're a realtor, for instance, or if you're a hairdresser, you would fall into this category. And so what you're going to do is you're going to apply through the state. So even though the funds is federal, and it's been funded by the federal government. It's going to be pushed out through the state labor, I guess the Social Security office is what they, what is it called? The labor force or the workforce commission?
Yeah, I think Texas was the Texas workforce, something like that. Yeah.
So every state's different because the money's coming from the $600 coming from the federal government, but the state has to process it. So, for instance, in Louisiana, we just started getting that money, Wednesday, and I had some of my agents or most of my agents applying, right when this started because I knew it was going to happen. So we were applying, and it was very confusing. Even now it's confusing because when you apply on the state website, they don't have it. The questions that they ask you are not set up for 1099 people. Obviously, if you're a realtor and you have an LLC, you didn't get fired. Your wages are going to be reduced because of COVID. And a lot of people, have said, well, Jim, I just had a couple of closings. I'm okay. Yes, you might have had a couple of closings, but I can tell you right now, we are going into a recession and there is going to be some consequences. Now, I think this is going to be a much faster recovery. If you listen to all of the experts like Steve Harney at Keeping Current Matters, who is the oracle on market updates in the United States, he's saying that we should expect a recession. We should expect our businesses to be affected, but there's going to be a quick turnaround. But for us, most of our deals that we're closing now are from all the work we put into from December, January, February. So once those closings close, yes, there are people putting houses under contract, but it's significantly less than what it would have been absent this COVID. And, for a realtor, most areas are seasonal. So if you're a season, you count on the spring and the summer to make majority of your money. And so it's important that you recognize that you might be okay now, but there's going to be an impact in your business in the future, because I know, like in Lafayette, in our area, our showings are down almost 75%. And are we still showing houses? Yes. We are putting houses pending, but the volume is much less than what it should be. So be prepared for that. Go ahead and apply for unemployment. And I guess I got to give a disclaimer here. I am not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, and I'm not a financial advisor. So before I go any further, always talk to your financial advisor, your CPA, or your accountant, or your attorney, because I am not one of those. But I will tell you what I'm telling my agents: they should all apply for unemployment, and they are applying. And the first 3 weeks they were applying, and they were just getting rejected. And with unemployment, which I didn't know anything about unemployment until last week or 3 weeks ago, you have to apply each week. Okay, so the agents who originally applied 3 weeks ago, there's two programs. There's a state program, which is this pandemic, and it's between $107 and I think $250, but it's classified as the pandemic program. And if you qualify for that, then you automatically get the full $600 boost. So it's basically it's $707 a week per week, and so it's a significant amount of money. It might not be what you're not used to, but it will help. And so you're going to apply for on your state website. And if your state is like our website, they're not set up for 1099s or sole proprietors or realtors. So the questions aren't really there, but you're going to go ahead and apply. They may reject you anyway. When you might even get a rejection letter, but just keep going on the system every week. And we started getting checks. Some of my agents started getting checks, and they went back the 3 weeks they applied. So they got, $707 each week that they had since they started to apply. So I think it's important to understand that process. Don't get discouraged if you get rejected or if you get a letter in the mail that says you're rejected. Also, your broker or your team leader might get, if you filled out the application and you said, well, I'm employed by, like in my case, Keaty Real Estate. Well, I'm not really employing them because they're 1099s. I get a letter saying, hey, did you fire this person? Obviously, I didn't. I was filling out those forms and sending them back in, but I've gotten saying, hey, no, I did not fire Charles Ditch. He's still working with us, but his salaries is reduced as a result of COVID-19. And I was sending them back in. I was just informed that you don't have to send that form back in if you do get one of those and you're the broker or the team leader. By not responding, it's not going to kill the benefit, because it's an odd form, because if you're responding, you're not really saying, that telling them the truth, because they're not really your employees. So you're responding incorrectly. There's no right way to respond, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. I think that's important for everybody to know. This is unique. There is no game plan. There's no blueprint. The system is not set up for self-employed people. So when I got off the phone with you a couple of weeks ago, I immediately called my dad. He's a real estate agent still in Connecticut. And I said, you got to apply for unemployment. And he said, we don't get unemployment. I said, no. In this situation, this is all new. Apply. And I said, by the way, most likely they're not going to know how to fund it. They're not going to know how to process it, and you're going to get denied. I want you to apply again and again and again. I said, because getting it in early, if they do make it retroactive, you want to have the date when you first applied. And I was having a conversation with him within the last 48 hours. And in Connecticut, they sent out from the Connecticut Real Estate Association, don't apply until they gave him some ridiculous date in like June or something. We'll have it all figured out. I said, no. Apply every single week, because you don't want to wait till June and then they say, great, you're approved, we're going to start you in June. You want your application to have been in, April 10th. So yeah, just for everybody who's listening now, just, there is no like self-employed check here. I mean, they're trying to jam us into a system that's been existing forever that has never been applicable to us. So just continue to do it.
Yeah, there's no harm. There's nothing that's going to happen by applying. It won't hurt you. It won't prevent you from getting any other assistance from anything else. So I would suggest, like Alex said, I would apply, keep applying. You might get letters that you rejected, but in our case, a lot of my agents are getting checks from 4 weeks ago, from when this thing first started. So I highly recommend that. Don't get discouraged if it doesn't happen. If you qualify for the state pandemic fund, which is the $107 up to $250, like most of my agents had qualified for the $107, I guess, and then they automatically get the additional $600 to that check, and it gets deposited right into your account. And so here's how it works. And then I had lots of questions. Okay, well, how is it going to work? What if you have a closing? Does that kick you out of the whole program? And the way unemployment works, it's a week-by-week basis. So let's say, like, I have a Ethan Broussard, and he applied, and he got his checks from 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he's going to have a closing this week. Well, when he checks back in, because you got to check in every week and give them an update. And most people say you got to check in on Sundays. I think you can check in anytime, but they're saying Sundays is when you go online, you check, and it's weird because it says, have you applied for any work? Obviously you haven't. And by the way, they know this. 1099 people, realtors, they understand we don't have to go apply for more work. And again, this is a state-by-state basis. This is how Louisiana state, the way the application is, you go back in and you say, yes, I've applied for I either applied or didn't apply for jobs. That doesn't matter in this case because this is a special program. But answer the questions honestly. So when Ethan goes in on Sunday, they're gonna say, have you made any money this week? He's gonna say, yes, I made $5,000, and he's not gonna get benefits next week. They're not going to fund his account next week. But then when he goes in the following week, if he doesn't have another closing, then they're going to look back at just 1 week. In Louisiana, anyway, this is how it is. They're going to look back just 1 week and say, okay, well, did you make any money last week? No, I didn't. I didn't have any closings. Well, then you're going to get funded the next week, and so on and so forth. So you just keep doing it, and I think this is going to go to through July. So, and the reason why, you can't double dip, because if you get any other programs and you get to that question on a weekly basis, did you make any money? Did you get any assistance? You got to answer that honestly. Yes, I got the PPP or the EIDL loan or grant. When you do that, then that you will not qualify for the benefits the following week. Here's the thing, though. You might think, okay, well, PPP is the way for me to go, and we'll get into that in a second, or the EIDL loan, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and you might get into that, and what will happen is they run out of money, like they did last week. They ran out of money, and so now that could be 1 week that you could have got unemployment that you didn't get the PPP. So that's why I'm encouraging at least all my agents to apply for everything, and then they can decide and be honest not to double dip in certain areas, and make sure that you report everything and you account for everything the way you should, and then you should be fine. So there's the three components is cash flow. So that's the $1,000 or $1,200 that should be coming to all Americans in their bank account if you make less than $100,000. Then you should have the unemployment. So those are the two cash benefits. Then you have there's some tax benefits that they are talking about, and those are mostly for employees. So like employers, there's some Social Security, like payroll taxes that are getting deferred, and they're deferred paying your taxes until I think July. So there's some tax benefits that are in place, but those are mostly for employers. And then there's the loans and grants. And so in the loans and grants, Alex, did you have any questions about unemployment or anything before I move on?
No, I think that's good, man. I think the key takeaway is apply, continue to apply until your state catches up with how to onboard and get you into the system as as self-employed.
That's right. Yeah. And just be honest. And if you have questions, talk to your CPA, talk to your financial advisor, and do what's right for you. So then there's the loans and grants, and everybody's probably heard about this, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, and that's the EIDL program. And so that's through SBA, and it's administered through the SBA, the Small Business Administration. And so what you'll do there is you'll go onto the SBA site. You can apply for the EIDL loan, and in that loan application, it's super simple. It's just the initial application, super simple. It takes about 5 minutes. You'll go in there, apply, and then at the bottom of the application, they're going to have, would you like the grant? Now, originally, it was up to $10,000 on everybody. Well, they ran out of money, and they're running out of money real quick, so then they changed it a maximum of $1,000 per employee, which is a grant. It's 100% forgivable. So if you're a realtor, what I'm telling my agents to do is apply for that, and all of them did, and they're starting to get their $1,000. Because if you're whether you're a 1099 and you just run your business, with no LLC or company, they consider you an employee. It's $1,000. If you have an LLC or an S corp set up and you pay yourself a salary, well, you're an employee. You're going to get $1,000. That should be that's a forgivable grant. It's not a loan. You don't have to pay it back. However, you do have to account for where you spent the money. Now, this is where we don't have any direction on how to account for that, because like when I'm going to get $1,000 grant. I should get $1,000 grant for each one of my employees up to $10,000. So if I have 12 employees, I'll have, up to $10,000. Now I'm going to put all of the money that I get from each program in a separate banking account, and I'm going to account for it. Now, the grant is forgivable as long as I use it for payroll, utilities, and business uses. Now, I don't know, and nobody has the answer to this. How does Ethan Broussard, one of my agents, what he can spend it on? I'm assuming he can spend it on anything and it will be forgiven, because it's just like me paying $1,000 to one of my employees. Once as an employer, once I give the money or payroll to my employees, they can spend it on whatever they want. So, but you want to make sure, just in case, keep very, very good records of what you're spending that grant money on, if you want it to be forgiven, which obviously we all want it to be forgiven. But we don't have any answers for that. I've talked to the National Association of Realtors and also the Louisiana Realtors, and they're working on getting us an answer of what that can be. So that's the EIDL loan grant, but you can apply for the EIDL loan, which is the same application, well, the initial application, and that is going to be a loan, and that's a working capital loan that you can apply for through the SBA loan program. And when you apply for that, you're going to, I don't know what the limits are, or I haven't even gotten the application, and I was probably one of the first ones to apply. I did get $1,000 for one of my companies that I own, and I had one employee. So I know I got one of those. I'm waiting for the grant for my main company. But I would go ahead and apply for it. I've heard that people are starting to get the loan applications where you can actually apply for it. And it's going to be a 3.5% interest loan, and it's going to and you got to pay. It's going to be a 30-year loan. So it's actually going to be a good program if you need some working capital. It's not going to be forgivable though. It's going to be a loan. So that's important to distinguish the two. And then there's the big one, which is called the Paycheck Protection Plan, the PPP. You might be hearing a lot about that, which as of today is April 21st. They ran out of money a couple of days ago. So there's not even an application online anymore. However, the PPP, the Congress is right now, it's in the House today. So they should be voting on funding that with another 300 billion, something crazy amount. And that's going to the House today. And then tomorrow it should go to the Senate. And if it all passes, then Thursday that money may be available. So you want to just keep a close eye on the politics of that, so that you know when to apply. But I would go ahead and get my application ready. Alex, I'll send you an application so you have it and you can post it on this. But if you pull up that graphic I sent you, NAR put out this great graphic, and it compares the PPP to the EIDL loan program. I don't know if you can share that screen or.
Yeah, can you see that? Yeah, and for those of you who listen, we'll kind of walk you through this, but we'll also post this up on our YouTube channel as well for the visual.
So this came out from NAR. They just posted this, I think, yesterday. But it's going through the Paycheck Protection Program versus the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And on one side it has the PPP, and then on the other side it has the EIDL, and it goes through each program. So the eligibility for the PPP is you got to be a small business or a sole proprietor or an independent contract and self-employed. Well, and you have to have less than 500 employees. I think that probably covers every realtor in America except for the big, brokers. And then to qualify for EIDL, same thing, business with less than 500 employees, a sole proprietor or independent contractor. So those are basically the same. PPP, it's the money. So here's where uses, it says uses, right? And I went over this a second ago. Obviously, we need clarification on this for the everyday average realtor, because it says payroll expenses, including benefits. So where you could use the money if you get it, for it to be forgiven, it has to be used in payroll expenses, including benefits and mortgage. You can use it as mortgage interest. They're not going to pay your principal, but you'll be able to utilize that money for interest, and anything you spend on interest will be forgiven. Rent, utilities, interest on debt incurred before February 15th, which means any loans that you had in place before February, but you can't go out and buy a new truck, Alex. I know you wanted that big Super Duty truck, but you got to wait. Now, that is for it to be forgiven. You can use this money any way you want, but you're going to have to pay it back. For the PPP, I believe it's a 1% loan, and this is the latest I've heard. This could change, and literally things are changing day by day. So as of April 21st, and there's no money there anyway, but as of the last application, you could use the money, and if you used it for payroll, mortgage interest, rent, utilities, interest, or debt before that you had in place before this crisis, it would be forgiven. But if you for instance, let's say you get $10,000 and you didn't need all of that money you only spent $5,000 on some of these eligible uses, then you had another $5,000 on it, and you got the $1,000 PPP grant. Well, that grant is going to go against the PPP, the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan Grant, which is forgiven, will go against. So if you had $5,000 that you spent in eligible uses and you got the grant, that would be $6,000. You would actually take off. You would only, on the PPP, you would only have $4,000 that would be forgivable. So that grant will go against any eligible sources. Then that means you'll have $6,000 left over, and if you use that money in other uses than what's eligible, then you're going to have to pay that back over a 2-year period at 1% interest.
Also, so, in the graphic here that we're showing, you guys can go to nar.realtor/coronavirus coronavirus SBA. So it's nar.realtor/coronavirus SBA. And that's the graphic that we're looking at. Obviously, get additional information about the programs that we're talking about today.
And then it says the amount. So the amount of your PPP. So this was a big change. So when I applied 2 or 3 weeks ago, the application was, of course I'm an employer, so I used what was my payroll for all of last year, and then what were my expenses, utilities, and everything, and then all of those eligible uses. Most of that is payroll. We would take all of that, add it up, and divide it by 12 to come up with a monthly expense, and then you multiply that by 2.5, and then that gave you the loan amount that you could apply for. And for me as an employer, if you have any brokers out there that are listening to this, you have to spend 75% of the money that you receive from the PPP on payroll within the next 8 weeks from the day that you receive it. There's a time limit, and then the 25% of it could be spent on mortgage interest, rent, utilities, or interest on debt that you've incurred that you had in place before. So there specific conditions on how you can use it. And that's why I was saying I'm opening up a separate account for all this money, because I want to get as much of it forgiven as possible when this is all. I don't want to come out of this coronavirus cycle with a bunch of debt. So keep it separate, because it's easier to account for it, and you can show a paper trail. My advice would be don't commingle it with the rest of your money, because it might be hard to figure out what was spent, on eligible uses. Okay, and then the EIDL loan, it says amount up to $15,000. Applicants can also apply for a cash advance. That's the $1,000 per employee, up to $10,000. So you can get another $15,000 in working capital. Actually, another $16,000, because there's a $1,000 grant plus up to $15,000. I don't know how they're going to calculate that amount, because in the SBA application, it was only 5-minute application. All I did was put my what we made last year gross on there, and that was it. So I'm assuming what's going to come next is they're saying you're going to get an SBA lender is going to reach out to me and then send me loan docs. Then I'll fill out all the loan docs. They'll probably say, hey, Jim, you're eligible for $15,000. If you want to apply, fill out all these loan docs, then I'll send it back in. And so anyway, same thing. If they need to be spent on payroll, fixed debts, accounts payable, other expenses that can't be paid because of the disaster impact on your business. So again, if you get all of these programs, you may end up with too much money to spend in a certain period of time or within the guidelines set out. And whatever you don't spend, my understanding is whatever money you don't use to one of the eligible uses is going to become a loan. And on the economic injury disaster loan program, it's going to be 3.5% over 30 years, which isn't bad. And the PPP will be 1% over 2 years. Also not a very bad gig either. But it's capped at 100. So here's the big change with the PPP. Originally, it was based off of your gross income. Now it's based off of your net income. And so when they made that change, when you fill out the application, if you are a independent contractor, if you're an LLC, or if you pay yourself a salary, if you're an S Corp, you're probably paying yourself a small salary so you don't pay too much in Social Security and our taxes. So that's going to affect it. So if you're only paying yourself $30,000, for instance, you're gonna take $30,000, divide that by 12. That's $2,500 per month. Multiply that by 2.5, and that's $6,250 loan amount that you can apply for. Now, if you put a higher net income amount, be careful with that, because whatever you put as the higher income amount for 2019, you better have that same net income on your taxes for 2019, which means if you up it to try to get more money on the PPP, well, you're just going to have to pay more taxes when you go to pay your taxes for 2019. So again, it's really important that you talk to your CPA or your accountant before you apply for the PPP. But if you really did make $30,000, or if you're paying yourself $30,000, this is $6,250 of money that could be forgiven, and you potentially could might not have to pay any of it back, as long as you use it for one of these uses. And at the bottom it says the terms, and that's where it says on the PPP it's a fixed interest rate of 1% with no payment for the first 6 months. The economic injury disaster fund is 3.75%, and there's no payment for 12 months. And that's up to a 30-year loan term, and there's no prepayment penalty, so you can always pay it earlier. Or if you want to put it in your bank account or in a bank account and keep it there until we get past this, then you get past it and you have a bunch of money in there, you didn't use it, just give it back to them, and there's no prepayment penalty. That's kind of how I'm looking at it.
That's awesome, man. I really appreciate you carving out time to give back to the real estate community, bring some of the awareness and the attention that's needed to these programs. Again, guys, talk to your local state representatives, talk to your CPA, your financial advisors when you're doing all of this stuff. We really wanted to just bring this to your attention so that agents understand there are things out there right now that you can be taking action on, protecting yourself, and just generating some cash, putting some cash to continue on doing the things that we need to do to keep our businesses moving forward during this unique and challenging times. But Jim, I really appreciate you carving out time today, man.
Hey, Alex, there's two other things I just want to bring up that are benefits from NAR, the National Association of Realtors, the place that you send all your dues to. Well, if you don't have medical insurance or a telemedicine program in your medical insurance, NAR is providing two free months of telemedicine for you and your entire family. So if one of your family members gets sick and you don't have insurance or your insurance plan doesn't cover telemedicine, NAR will actually cover that for you. And if you end up liking it and you want to continue it, they've negotiated a price at $7 a month moving forward after this crisis. The other thing is some of you guys hopefully are communicating with all your sphere of influence, getting out there and touching base with your sphere of influence. But if in your downtime, if you do want to catch up on some education, NAR also is providing a few free classes with, and they're waiving 50% of the sign-up fee for some of these classes online. So check out some of the NAR benefits, nar.realtor/coronavirus.com. They got all kinds of really good information there. And Alex, I think it's great what you're doing, man. Spreading the word and helping agents, stay busy and stay relevant in this unbelievable, unprecedented time. I thank you for doing that.
Man, I appreciate you because there's so much of this that I wasn't aware of until speaking with you, and you definitely shed some clarity on it and allowed me to go to the agents who I have influence on and share this with them. And I think that's the name of the game here, right? Educate yourself and share. Help other agents put themselves in a situation where they can protect their family, put some, bring in some money, put some food on the table, especially during these unique, challenging times. So getting educated and sharing with the agent community is really vital right now.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to do it. And thanks for having me.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate your time.
You got it, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Dominant Agent Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please be sure to leave a comment and review on whatever platform you're listening on so that we can continue to bring you the very best guests